So, this is the weird part of any podcast where I don't know how to start it, but I guess I just say bienvenidos. See, welcome. Um,
Three, two, one, go. Okay, we're talking about the
we're
book that
talking.
we read together.
Well, yeah, it was technically my book, but I roped you into it because I don't like reading on my own. All that aside, I guess the easiest place to start is the book. Obviously, *Handmaid's Tale*, right? It's a book for sure. But no, it's talking about talks about a lot of different issues. To be fair, um, but as we were talking about it, one of the things that we kind of picked out on, and I'm bring back up because you were starting to go on a rant, and I wanted you to save it. We were talking about the scene. What is it when she's talking? Offred's talking with the commander, right? Um,
Sure.
I think I had brought up the factor point of like, oh, what is it? Oh yeah, he was talking about like, oh yeah, we had made all these changes and we incited all this, and wasn't necessarily for like religious purposes. It wasn't because, oh, I felt like, oh, this is the way that people should be. It was more of a thing that the commander points out that this was actually just capitalism at work, baby. Uh, they were looking at a sense of like, oh well, sex is boring. I can just go to any hooker on the street and get it, right? And so they decided to kind of chip away at it. And I think the conversation we were having was kind of the same idea of like diamonds, right? Control. If you
Artificially
control,
inflated value.
yeah, if you control what's the term, supply. If you control the supply, then you can also create a higher demand. Um,
Yeah. Artificially inflate demand. But I was saying that it's more that by restricting access to it, they are putting themselves into a position of like more power, right? They have
yeah,
a bigger bargaining chip over people of lower classes by restricting access to sexual intercourse to like an upper class, quote unquote, upper economic class. Um, shoot, what exactly was I saying? I'm trying to get back to where I was um, when you first brought it up, but goodness. Had it in my head and I'm blanking really hard right now. My headset just flickered out. In terms of had to do with restricting access to it. And get right. We were talking about the masculine concept, or kind of the more male centric, and this is very frequent in like incel discussion, or kind of the idea that has developed into what we think of as incel. But it has long been kind of a concept that women control like sex. That's their bargaining chip. Whereas to men, because men in culture are driven by like sexual desire.
and I mean that.
Whereas like men, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that also kind of plays into the idea, and I don't know if this is like a societal thing or a culture thing, but it's the idea of like men have to approach women for sex, at least the way that I see it. Like the way that I understand, I don't. I know that they do. I am not a woman myself. I cannot speak for women. But the way that I see it is sex is something that men are more viewed as the people who have to go out and seek it. Like I don't hear, at least in media, the idea of like women going out and finding sex. Maybe that has some idea nowadays with the thought of like, oh, a woman going out and looking for sex is a whore, but a man's just trying to, he's just trying to have a good time. I don't know if that's exactly the idea behind it, but
In a way, it's the boys will be boys mentality.
mhm.
But like, uh, so okay, it's deep. It like the idea that a woman's bargaining chip, quote unquote, the value that they are able to bring to a relationship is sex, because that is what the masculine side or the male side desires. And men control marriage, like that's what they can potentially offer. Marriage, the reason that idea exists is because for a large portion of history, marriage hasn't so much just represented like emotional fulfillment, but also financial stability in situations where like women can't work. Um, it creates a reliance on men. So it's kind of getting back to this dichotomy where um, if all that men have to offer is financial stability and like emotional fulfillment, but mostly financial stability, and essentially survival. But then women gain the ability to have that like financial stability on their own, and men don't step up to the plate and like actually offer something more, then that's kind of where we're at right now with a lot of um, a lot of the discussion around like heterosexual relationships, because historically men haven't really had to offer that much. It's just kind of been like, well, you're with me because I offer financial stability, and I'm with you because I'm horny. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
I mean,
um,
I don't know, but that does kind of bring up another
that's where
idea
the sorry, go ahead.
from the book. There's one point in the book, and I don't know if you were around when I was reading this, but they do a flashback to when Gilead was kind of taking control, and they had overthrown the government and they're starting to put their own rules into play. And Offred comes into work to find out that she and every other female that is working in her position has been immediately terminated. And it's interesting because where she works is a library. And as she leaves the building, they happen to burn down the entire library. Um, but
Ooh, okay.
but
Interesting. Book burning is
yeah,
very.
but as she goes home, I think if I remember correctly, she tries to buy a pack of cigarettes, something to take the edge off, relax after a day. She hands the employee up front, who used to be a female, is now just some random teenage boy, hands them her credit card. They swipe it. Her account has been declined, which is weird because she had just gotten paid. She knew she had money, so she goes back home, tries to call the bank, and no one will pick up her phone, nothing. So her husband comes home. She talks with him. He says, check the news. And apparently what's happened is the government has closed the accounts of every woman, and if the woman was married, then their money was immediately transferred over to the husband.
Transferred to the men, yeah.
Yeah. And it was the idea
So it backs them into a. Oh, I was just saying, it backs them into a corner of like being reliant on the man again.
Yeah.
It's
And
asserting like a male dominant society.
yeah, and I think you had mentioned as well the idea of, and it's weird because I hadn't really thought about that until after reading the book and researching. I didn't know this took place in 2005, and you just seemed kind of nonchalant about it when I brought it up. But when I had read the book, I had always interpreted this as something that took place in like the 60s or 70s, right? This is taking place, I think it was on Harvard campus, like that area of the US. And I was just like, what? Like, I imagined, Chevrolet Bel Airs and, we got put up hair and all the fun jazz going on. But no, this is 2005. This is the era of what? Backstreet Boys and Sync? I don't know. But it's just weird to think about that and think of like, oh, well, we have the hoods on our heads and we're talking about, oh, well, this is a men's society. Like, you had brought up the concept of regressionism, the idea of, oh, this is a society that's regressing back to an older, uh, idealistic belief of this is how society should be structured. Um, I don't know. That just
Sure.
caught me off
And I
guard.
mean, like, it's a bit, it's like, this is how society should be structured, quote unquote, by like a male ruling elite who, I mean, this is the kind of like the concept of the patriarchy brought to its logical extreme, right?
Hmm.
Where it's not just like a set of influences and biases and cultural norms that like um, kind of allow men to be more successful, more affluent, more influential. It's literally taking the concept to its natural extreme, where the wealthy elite of men, the ruling class of men, have recognized their power, have organized, and have specifically made a concerted effort to reclaim any power, like, because who could stop them, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're making it, it's a dystopia that asks, what if men recognized the like quiet power that they take for granted, um and like discarded any sense of humanism, any sense of like morality, and like just made a grab for it and regressed all of the rights that women have fought for over this whole period of time. Like this, I would call it recent because hasn't been. It's been within the last like 100 years, 50 years, even like major developments in the last 20, and a couple of pretty big losses in recent times. But
I mean, if you're talking
um,
about regression from progress, I feel like the easiest and most forward recent thing is the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I mean, that's a pretty big
which is
conversation right
exactly what I
there.
was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But shoot, there. I don't want to get. Oh well, that was a cool little thing that just happened. It just kicked me out of VR temporarily. I don't want to get too lost in the sauce and like, because I'll ramble on for literally ever. Um, but shoot, there was a lot more I wanted to say about that, like earlier. Um,
Well,
topic.
I feel like kind of
Go ahead.
talking about kind of where we are today, right? We talked a bit about Handmaid's Tale. I feel like this might be a good turning point
Yeah,
to
sure.
also talk about the article I had sent you, had you read, the Fascism Anyone article, right? Where we're talking about
Okay.
America today. Well, not America today. We're talking about fascist states, but it's
Hmm.
really interesting how all of these like specific ideas that they talk about, scapegoating, talking about, the mixing of religion and government, these small little things, and how as you read down the list, it continues. You think like, huh, I kind of see that in America today, and I see that. It's almost kind of like when people are doing their star signs, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm such a Aquarius. You wouldn't believe it, right?"
Oh no no
Like,
no 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 no. I'm gonna call somebody out right now. I'm gonna call somebody in your fucking class right now. I'm calling them out. Scorpios, don't fucking use it as an excuse.
but no, it's the thing of like, man, fascism really is America's star sign.
Really?
Like,
oh oh buddy.
like as much as we want to sit here and be like, "Oh, America doesn't do that, right? We wouldn't do that. We're the land of the free. We're the land of the brave." I mean, look at us. We're 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 sending money and weapons to countries that are dropping bombs on
Okay,
hospitals
I'm
and
just
schools.
gonna
But
throw this out there. I'm gonna throw this out there. I was going to say not to get too political, but this conversation is inherently political. Like, let's be
Mhm.
fucking real.
Yeah.
The backlash against Antifa and the demonization of Antifa. Antifa stands for anti-fascist. It's the anti-fascist movement. Like, the demonization in the media is very telling. Being that their whole platform is pointing out and like pushing back against fascist ideology. The fact that that was considered a bad thing is like scary as hell to me.
I mean, fuck, we were trying to talk about regressionism. You could argue that that's regressionism right there. We already know that fascism is bad. Just look
Yeah.
at fucking Nazi Germany for God's sake. But
One of the things that you pointed out from the like fascism anyone article was the joining of religion and state.
mhm.
So incorporating religion into um, like doctrine articles and laws, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Oh God, we're going right
that
back
was
to Roe v.
also a
Wade, I
theme in
feel
hand.
it. Sorry.
No. I was actually going to make a parallel to
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, and that is actually something I wanted to touch on. That was kind of what I was going to lean into when I was trying to like nudge it back to the first thing that the first topic we talked about. That's another thing historically the ruling class has used as a means to control the lower and less educated class is religion.
Yeah.
Religion becomes the mouthpiece of the wealthy and the affluent, and becomes a means of control. Because that is generally an easy way to set the standards of morality, which are, I mean, if not thought through, can be pointless effectively. Like you if you stigmatize certain things. Sorry, feedback from the mic. If you stigmatize certain things like sexuality, it becomes a means of control and a means of disrupting people's access to it through social pressure and isolation. And then it creates an essentially self-governing body of the less fortunate. Have you ever heard the term useful idiot?
No, but I consider myself one of those.
That's not true. We're not going to do this right now. That's not true. That is not true at all. But okay, refocusing. No, so like essentially whatever you get them to buy in because they believe in the afterlife, this cosmic reward, that the things that they're doing are inherently moral. And then it becomes the people that buy into that ideology become a self-governing populace because they believe it is the inherently correct thing to do, and that means they'll call out their fucking neighbors. And you don't really have to do a whole lot. You don't have to institute authorities that are like watching out for them. You don't have to create an observance state. You don't have to, like you don't have to have this whole network of like essentially the NRA, FBI. I
Hmm.
just said NRA, not NRA. Not, that's the National Rifle Association. Um, like,
That's a whole nother hour-long
sorry,
conversation right there. We could put the NRA on the side. But
yeah,
um,
different acronym, but like surveillance state, right?
yeah.
You don't have to create this whole surveillance state of letter people to watch the people under you that you're subjugating, because they're watching themselves and they're watching their neighbors, and they're holding each other to this specific standard. And the whole there. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I was just going to say, it kind of makes me think there was I know, it's a TikTok. Oh boy. But it posed an idea that I found interesting, that in politics, they were talking about political parties, right? And the way that they described
Sure.
it is the Republican Party aims to always win. The Democratic Party actually aims to lose. And they kind of put both of them in a negative light, saying, oh, they both sold out to large corporations, whether they have or not, that's not for me to do. But it's the idea of like, you know, the Republicans want to win and they want to help line their pockets and the pockets of the corporations they work with, right? And that's why they put forth these ideas of, oh yeah, let's remove abortion, let's essentially these quote unquote fascist ideologies, which also goes into the idea of fascism. One of their topics was, strengthening the power of corporations. Um, but the Democratic Party, it always aims to lose, with the idea of, oh no, we lost. Look at these demons. Look at these devils on the other side. Give us money so that we can try again next year. And it's the idea of they're formulated to lose so that they can make the same money that the Republicans are making. Like, in a
Because people
way,
love an underdog.
well, yeah, they love an underdog, and it essentially all they have to do is in front of the camera point fingers at each other, and they keep getting money off of it. It's almost as if it's some sort of TV drama rather than actual politics.
Yeah, it's fabricated outrage.
Mhm.
It's exactly like actually, this is a great time to segue into bread and circuses, because
Mhm.
it is another method of control. It's creating distractions so that people don't focus on the larger issues and um, don't look at the problems they actually want to change. You can create a specific like normal, right?
Yeah.
An acceptable normal by that you can live within and you can be comfortable within and you can control reasonably, as long as you always have some bombastic new threat for people to point at and be like, "That's the problem."
Mhm.
And as long as they're focused on changing that really crazy thing that is taking up all of their bandwidth to focus on, they're not going to focus on the little things that you keep sliding under the table, sliding under the rug, or like getting. If you haven't, both sides kind of do this. If you have a specific agenda, something that you want, like a bill that you want to pass, but you know that if people focus on it, it probably won't pass, you fabricate outrage around another kind of like bill or law that is attempting to be passed and is the new Antichrist and it needs to be stopped because it's the end of the world to somebody. Um,
I find that
then
interesting.
people will focus. Sorry, I was just going to say people will focus on striking that down. Meanwhile, you're quietly pushing what you actually care about through
Mhm.
Congress or the House of Representatives, etc. Um, and it goes completely unnoticed. It's happened on both sides, like several times. I don't have any specific instances that I can quote off the top of my head, but I can probably find those for you if you want it for
Well,
this segment, like supporting.
well, I feel like this is just a conversation. If we don't have it, it's I'm not gonna stress out. But it is an interesting idea
Sure.
to think about because not just thinking about oh a new bill. This is the Antichrist bill. I feel like this has been used a lot more with the instance of war, right? I mean, we can go even further back in history. We can look at the World Wars, or we can look at the Korean War. We can look at the Cold War, right? They're looking at these enemies that they can point to and say, "Look at that." And while everyone's looking over there, they can also pass some legislation under the table. And people, because I remember reading through the history books or the classes that I've taken, and whenever we get to those segments, we aren't really talking about major bills that were passed or laws, because the big thing at the time was we're fighting the Germans. Oh, we're looking very intensely at the Russians, and we don't know if there's any around us, but there's got to be Russians. Are you Russian? Am I Russian? And the thing is that I feel like that also happens nowadays. I mean, if you look at the war that we had in Iraq, right? We're sending troops over there. 9/11. Oh God, we need to fight for America, and we send the troops over, and we're fighting there for one reason, but then also at the same time, I feel like around that time, especially around 9/11, like a lot of people just kind of tuned out to what was happening here inherently in America because we were so focused on, you know, defending our own grounds. The World Trade Center's just fallen. There's a bunch of people who have just died. We need to go fight for them, right? And we aren't really looking at, okay, but we still have our own issues here. Um,
Right.
and heck, I mean, that could be even compared to today. I mean, right now, the big thing that I hear about, and every day at work, I listen to NPR. The news that I hear every day as like the main headline news is there's Ukraine still in the news a bit, and it's Gaza and Israel. That's the two big things that I hear. And I'll hear little snippets here and there of like, oh yeah, Biden, by the way, is going to the Great Plains to talk about opening up new electric car facilities, and we're talking about like, oh yeah, by the way, two people in our Congress have resigned. Well, one resigned and the other got fired. That's kind of interesting, but we're just gonna cruise over that because look at Gaza and Israel. Another hospital's been taken over, and they're talking about tunnels, but the Palestinians are declining that there were ever tunnels in the first place. And it's just like, you know, I feel there's. I guess I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't make me look like a douche, but it's something that like this is happening all the way
It's
across the
politics,
world.
by the way. You can't.
Yeah, but this is something that's happening all the way across the world, and this is all I hear about. And yes, these people matter. I care about them, and I want them to not do this. But it's also a thing of like we're also dealing with our own stuff here over here, right? There's a story that I heard recently about a woman in Texas who her baby, it was either her or her baby was going to have like fatal, deadly risks of the pregnancy. And she is now dealing with a sort of lawsuit because she tried to appeal through Texas and say, hey, like, can I get a legal abortion? You know, oh, it was the baby. The baby would only last like 2 hours and it would suffer immense pain for those 2 hours before it would die. And initially she was given a pass. Texas had said, yes, you can have the abortion. And then apparently someone, I don't know if it was the state or if it was a doctor, but someone had come in and they repealed that and they said, no, we need to take this to a higher court. And now she has to wait even longer for that to get processed. And I think she's already declared she's just going to go out of state. She's going to go out of the state, get the abortion because this is too much in Texas and she's not willing to go through with it. But that's proceeding is still going to have to go through. They're still going to have that court. They're still going to have to make a decision on it, even though she's already declared and told them, like, I'm just going to go out of state. I'm not going to deal with this. And I find it just fucking wacky.
It might be because it's going to set a precedent for like future rulings. I'm not sure because I don't actually know what you're quoting, but I mean, yeah, all red tape. But yet another thing, actually. This is just something I read, but apparently, when there is a war, it is like when a war starts, the person that has most recently been elected, like when the war started, tends to maintain their position, uh, like after the war has started. Like if there's an election that happens during wartime, people have a tendency to just keep the person in charge that was already in charge. It's not because people like war, it's because people like people like stability and predictability, and they likely know what this person is going to do. They may not know what a new person might do.
Mhm.
So again, like there's all these kind of like bargaining chips at play that people don't really even recognize might influence them. There's shoot, I want to say it was from the Power Broker. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just a me thing. I don't remember.
Mhm.
I don't think I've actually read the Power Broker, but I've definitely read like excerpts from it. But like the thing about power is that you convince other people to give it to you. Because power is just a concept. Like things only have the value that you give to them.
Mhm.
So if you can convince somebody that something has worth, or you can convince somebody that you have power over them, then you have power over them. A singular person only has the strength, the might, the military capability of a single person. It is when they convince other people to follow them, or that they are greater than they are, or that they have some sort of actual influence over their life, that they gain power, right?
Mhm.
So that all ties back into The Handmaid's Tale. It's all people convincing other people to hand over power to them. And in this specific case, a lot of women didn't really have that choice because they had enough of the population had been convinced that these this ruling class had this amount of power. And maybe it was through wealth, which again, even if there's anything backing it, we have to agree that that thing is valuable.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't get to read the beginning of the book. I only got to read the very, very end, which was very emotional. Um, damn. Yeah, no, that
Well,
I'm gonna
I
read that
don't
whole book.
I don't mean to cut you off here, but I'm running out of time. It's been wonderful talking with you. I'll have the full version of this uploaded to YouTube, and I will submit that to you uh, for your viewing pleasure. But otherwise, this will be edited down. And thank you for joining me for this conversation today.
I can't do thumbs up. Absolutely.
Of course.
I'm sorry. I'm normally more eloquent, and
Hmm.
normally my thoughts are a little more well developed, but I haven't slept in 2 days, and
No, it's
I'm
fine. And honestly,
unable to.
I think we got plenty of recording in there.